Between 45,000 to 50,000 years ago, a brave Neanderthal took his final breath in a dark cave, his ribs pierced by a mysterious weapon never seen before. Who attacked him? And what does his death tell us about the brutal clash between Neanderthals and early humans? Every day in the mountains was hard work. The ground was uneven, and the rocky slopes made every step difficult. Even the best hunters sometimes slipped or fell. Neanderthals learned to be brave and careful. They moved slowly and always watched for danger. One such Neanderthal is Shannidar III, who lived in a wild land of high mountains, deep valleys, and cold winters. Life was tough. People had to work together to hunt for food, stay safe, and build a home. Everything had to be made by hand. Shannidar III and his people used simple stone tools that they made themselves. They used a style called the Mousterian tool culture. These tools were made from stones that they chipped with other stones. The Mousterian tools included heavy spears, hand axes, and scrapers. Because they were heavy, these tools were very good for close-up hunting. When a Neanderthal went hunting, he would use these tools to get close to the animal. With one strong thrust, he could take down a deer or a wild cow. Shannidar III learned to use stone tools from a young age. When he was young, he ran fast through the mountains like the wind. He was very sure-footed and strong. He could chase wild animals and bring them down with one strong hit. One day, everything began to change. A new group of people came into the area. They were different from the Neanderthals and brought new ideas and new tools. One important tool was the Neronian spear point. These spear points were not heavy like the old Mousterian spears. They were small, light, and very sharp. They were made to be thrown from far away with a tool called an atlatl, which is like a long stick that helps throw a spear farther. The Neronian spear points could pierce deep into an animal's body. A thrown spear with a Neronian point made a clean, narrow cut. In simple words, the wound from a Neronian point was neat. In contrast, a heavy Mousterian spear would have made a messy wound with many broken pieces of bone. In the mountains, life was not always peaceful. One day, Shannidar III noticed that the air smelled strange, as if strangers had come to the land. He heard soft sounds of danger and saw unusual shadows between the trees. Soon, some of his people began to disappear. Shannidar III and his group had always been great hunters. They were strong and brave, but now they felt like they were being hunted. When Shannidar III first saw these strangers, he noticed they carried weapons that were very different from the heavy spears his people used. Their weapons were long, slender, and had very sharp tips. One cold, quiet morning, while Shannidar III was walking through the rough highlands, something terrible happened. Out of nowhere, the first spear flew through the air and hit a rock beside him with a sharp crack. Shannidar III turned quickly. His heart beat fast, and he looked down the empty ridge, but all he saw was the cold wind and silence of the mountains. Then, suddenly, the second spear struck him. It was not a heavy blow that crushed his body, but a clean, sharp point that sliced through his left ninth rib. A flash of burning pain filled his chest. He put his hands on the wound and saw red pooling in his palm. His legs began to fail, and he could barely stand. Shannidar III tried to run, but his injured foot, scarred from an old accident that had left it broken, made every step very painful. He limped slowly, each step a battle against the rough, hard earth. He could feel his strength fading as he struggled to reach the safety of his cave. Shannidar III had many injuries during his life. Some of his wounds healed because his family took care of him by sharing food and helping him get better. But the injury on his left ninth rib was very different. His left ninth rib had a clean cut that did not break the bone into pieces. Scientists studied this wound and believe it was caused by a light, sharp weapon, like a thrown Neronian spear point. The cut was made at a 45-degree angle and with high speed. Because the bone began to heal, Shannidar III did not die right away. He may have lived for weeks or even months after this injury. Another interesting thing about Shannidar III is the shape of his chest. Scientists looked at all of his rib bones and used computers to rebuild what his chest looked like. Unlike our round chests, his chest was shaped like a bell, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. Imagine standing next to him. Your chest stays the same from your shoulders to your belly, but his would have gotten wider toward the bottom. Scientists also looked at another Neanderthal called Kabara, too, from Israel. Even though they lived far apart, both had the same bell-shaped chest. Scientists used 3D models to study their rib bones. They found that Neanderthals had longer ribs that stuck out to the sides and didn't curve down as much as ours. Their ribs also had less twist and made their lower chest wider and deeper. These things made their bodies look and work differently. Experts think this chest shape helped Neanderthals breathe deeply using their diaphragm. Even though they were shorter than us, they were super strong. They had heavy bones, strong arms, and big muscles. Their brains were about the same size as ours, and they helped each other when someone got hurt. Neanderthals made simple stone tools to cut meat and clean animal skins. They ate both meat and plants. They were good at quick, powerful movements and staying warm in cold weather. Modern humans are better at running long distances and doing small, careful tasks with their hands. Neanderthals cared for one another. For example, one named Shannidar lived a long time, even though he had a crushed eye and broken bones. This shows us they helped each other survive. They weren't just cave people. They were smart, strong, and kind. Today, scientists know that many people, especially those with European or Asian ancestry, still carry a small amount of Neanderthal DNA in their bodies. In fact, about 1% to 2% of their DNA comes from Neanderthals. This ancient DNA can affect how our bodies work in small ways. For example, it may change how we fight off sickness, how we feel pain, or even how we sleep. This means that Neanderthals are still a part of us today. Long ago, when modern humans and Neanderthals lived near each other, they sometimes had children together. These children had mixed DNA from both groups. Scientists believe that this happened more than once over many thousands of years. So, even though Neanderthals are gone, part of them still lives on in us. This connection shows us that Neanderthals were not so different from us. They were thoughtful and caring, just like people today. But what else have scientists learned about Shannidar 3? Neanderthals like him lived in northern climates for a long time, about 500,000 years, so their bodies changed to handle the cold. They developed lighter skin and sometimes had blue or green eyes, freckles, and lighter hair like blonde or red. That might sound surprising, but it's true. These features didn't just appear recently. Scientists now know they came from Neanderthals. In fact, blue eyes may have started around 42,000 years ago in a nearby area called the Caucasus. So Shannidar 3 may have had sandy blonde hair, light skin, and blue or brown eyes. These traits were passed on when Neanderthals and early modern humans had children together. This mixing happened more than once, and today many people still carry small parts of Neanderthal DNA. Even you might have some. Neanderthal DNA also gave us things like stronger bones, taller height, and higher energy levels. One human fossil found in Romania, named OACE-1, had about 10% Neanderthal DNA. That means one of his great-great-grandparents might have been a full Neanderthal. Maybe Shannidar 3's people met their group while traveling through the mountains. Shannidar 3 himself was pretty tall for a Neanderthal, about 5 feet 6 inches. That's a little shorter than most adults today, but taller than most of his kind. He probably took care of his appearance, tying back his hair and keeping his clothes in good shape. Even though Neanderthals are often shown as wild and dirty, they were actually skilled and thoughtful. Shannidar 3 made fires, sharpened tools, and even used sticky pine sap or birch tar like glue to hold tools together. While he hunted and protected the group, the women were busy too. They made warm fur clothing and jewelry, gathered plants and herbs, hunted small animals like rabbits and birds, and helped take care of the children and injured. Everyone had an important job. Many skeletons found in Shannidar Cave show injuries like broken bones that healed over time. This means that Neanderthals cared for each other. If someone got hurt, the group helped them get better. One Neanderthal named Shannidar 1 lived to about 40 years old, even though he had a badly injured arm and leg. That's a sign of kindness and teamwork. Shannidar 3's skeleton is also helping scientists learn about how Neanderthals were built. His rib cage was shaped like a bell, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. It looked very different from ours, which are more barrel-shaped. This helped him breathe deeply using his diaphragm, especially during tough hunts or cold days. His strong chest and body helped him survive in hard times. But it wasn't just because of the cold. Scientists now believe that all Neanderthals had this shape, not just the ones living in cold places. Even though we still don't know everything about Shannidar III's life, we can tell he was brave, strong, and cared for. His final wound, a deep cut through his rib from a sharp-thrown spear, tells us that times were changing. New people with new weapons were coming. It was a time of danger and discovery. And when Shannidar III grew too weak to keep going, his people didn't just leave him behind. They buried him in the cave, gently placing his body in the earth. Maybe they lit a fire and told stories. Maybe they warned the young ones about the strangers who had come down from the hills. Even though he is gone, his bones stayed safe in that cave for over 50,000 years. Leave us a comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content from the past.